What is an inspection report?
The general idea is the structure in the building envelope. What condition is it in? What has to happen? Is there anything dangerous? And what is it going to cost to maintain it and fix it going forward?
How often should an inspection report take place?
It really depends on the building, the age of the building, the type of construction of the building, meaning the materials and how the exterior walls are made, the exposure, whether it's coastal. So we typically would like to do an initial investigation and report, and then as part of that report, we could give a timeline. So a brand new building with a modern curtain wall system that is not exposed to salt air or wind could probably go 5 to 10 years, but an older concrete building that has spalling and damage and is on the coast, they might need it every 6 months or a year.
Give me a basic idea of what is going to be included.
We try to tailor what we're doing to what the client needs and the building for a timeline of when they're required. Obviously, also apply to what the investigation entails and what we're looking at. For a typical building, the primary thing is safety issues, and that's both the safety of the building itself from a collapse, but also safety of the occupants from stuff falling off the building, water infiltration causing indoor air quality issues and mold. And then beyond that, it's a maintenance and cost. The management or the condo board is going to want to know, what is it going to cost me over the next 10 years to maintain this building? When do I have to fix stuff? What's the priorities?
Basically, you're going to be throughout the interior of the building and possibly hanging out the outside of the building.
Yeah, we would visit the site and do an initial look at it and then determine from there what the scope would be. And that can be everything, looking at balconies and a couple units and binoculars from street level to hanging scaffolding off the building and doing probing up close and everything in between.
The board is going to determine the scope.
Our recommendations to them, and obviously there's some scenarios where they wouldn't have a choice. We'd say your building's going to fall down if you don't do this, and we're going to have to tell the building department. That's very rare. Typically, we would tell them what we recommend, and then if there's any options that are greater or lesser than that in terms of scope, and come up with a customized scope from there.
What should the board expect to receive in regard to the report?
I'll try to err on the side of more rather than less, knowing that you can always eliminate different sections. But typically we would have a summary of what our scope was, summary of our limitations of what we did and didn't do essentially. And then we would have description of the building, the history of the building. We'd review any prior, any plans, any prior repairs that were made, drawings for repairs, maintenance reports. We sometimes will distribute resident surveys to, if there's a particular problem that people are complaining about, we might distribute a survey to the entire building to see if there's people that are not complaining that are having the same problem. Then we would do representative sampling of interiors and exteriors of units, and we document the conditions. We'd have photos, potentially list of work prioritized, and then potentially cost estimates for that work.
You're going to look at a lot of documentation, a lot of past reports.
If it's available, correct. I mean, there's a lot of buildings where they don't have any of that. The more they can give us, the better job we can do. Many times repairs that were made somewhere between 10 and 20 years ago, and that's the best we're going to get. Other times they hired an engineer and they did a full design and they have the records from the construction, and that can be really helpful. That can really save a lot of time and fees.
What are some misconceptions?
They don't understand the cost benefit calculus of it. Number one, they just see it as a cost is just going out the window. And number two, they might see it as a cost that the only thing that can come out of it is finding problems that are going to cost more money. But the types of issues we generally look for are ones that get worse over time. Facade deterioration, water infiltration, parking garage deterioration. If you can catch them early, you may spend significantly less money on fixing them than if you continue to put them off, paying the premium each year for the engineer to come out there to avoid the $4 million repair in 10 years.
Thanks for being here, Joe.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me.